everybody. My name is Coach Callaway. Are you a college football fan? If you are, then this is going to be one of your favorite podcasts to subscribe to. So I want to welcome you to episode number 1 of the Ultimate Football Coaches Podcast. In this inaugural episode of the Callaway Football Coaches Insiders Podcast, we're going to be diving headfirst into the 2025 college football season preview of the Alabama Crimson Tide. You are going to get a coach's unique perspective. You're going to get an insider's view and the insights and knowledge you won't get anywhere else. We have the information, the X's and O's that will literally open your eyes to the game in a way that you've never seen it before. So grab your playbook and get ready. But before I jump in, I have a quick favor to ask. Please subscribe to the podcast. This is episode 1, so we're going to build from scratch. Just simply hit that subscribe button and then share the podcast with people that you know. It'll help us spread the word. Your subscription really means a lot. It allows us to build our audience, of course, and bring you this podcast and this Insider's Coach's View for free. I have a few coaching opinions about what I saw from the Alabama football team and Coach Kalen DeBoer in his first year last year that I'm going to share with you as we look at the 2025 season. And the opinions that I'm going to share with you and the insights that I'm going to give you, you probably haven't heard these opinions and insights anywhere else, but I'm going to share them with you right here on this podcast. And even though they were not talked about in the media, I can assure you they were heard by the players in the locker room and in the film room at the University of Alabama. And I fully realize my opinions have the potential to get some of you fired up, probably get some of you angry at me, and that's okay. That's what this is all about. But let me start with this. I want to start with the obvious. Coach Kalen DeBoer cannot miss the playoffs this year in 2025. If he starts his first 2 seasons out down in T-Town without a playoff appearance, things are going to get very loud and very uncomfortable down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You know, under the GOAT, Coach Nick Saban, they won 10 games per season, every season since 2007. And Coach DeBoer's first season was the first time since then, since 2007, that Alabama did not win 10 games. The kicker was they lost to people like Vanderbilt. And then on the third Saturday in October, they lost to hated rival Tennessee Volunteers. And then the final nail in their season was getting embarrassed, literally embarrassed by an underperforming Oklahoma team last year before getting beat in the bowl game for the second year in a row by a Michigan team. And last year's Michigan team could not even score any points. Bama lost to them in the bowl game, losing 19-13. They have to bounce back this year, no doubt about it. In his second year, DeBoer must get this team to a 10-win season and get into the playoffs. And believe me, he understands it. He understands that this is not a program in Alabama where a 9-4 record will cut it down there. It's certainly not getting beat by teams less talented than them like Vanderbilt. Now, it is true, Coach DeBoer has proven himself that he's a solid coach. He's a winner. He's won everywhere that he's been. He has had a lot of success. We know that he started out, he won 3 NAIA national championships. Then he went 12-6 at Fresno State and 25-3 with the Washington Huskies. That's an impressive resume. He led Washington with that 25-3, record there. He led them to the national championship game 2 years ago. So he can coach, there's no doubt about it. But Alabama is a different place. It's a different deal down in Tuscaloosa. The expectations are different. The athletes are different. The weekly competition, week in and week out, is tremendously different. And here's what I saw with the Alabama team in his first year that really concerned me last year. Number 1, the general conduct of the players. Where we saw a lot of players have less emotional control and had a general lapse in player conduct that you never saw under Coach Saban's leadership. Just one example of that, of course, is Malachi Moore last year in the Vanderbilt game, where he was so frustrated. He literally kicked the ball as it was rolling around on the ground. Then he refused to even leave the field when he was getting substituted for. My question to you, have you ever seen, an attitude or a player conduct like that when Nick Saban was coaching there? There's no way. Nick Saban would not allow that, nor would the players, lash out and react that way under his leadership. That type of conduct would not have happened with Coach Saban there. Actually, It's about not being prepared to take care of business at Vanderbilt. That is the glaring thing here. That's what, gave these players the frustration that they had. They weren't prepared. They weren't focused. They weren't ready to take care of business with a far lesser talented team in Vanderbilt, and the frustrations bowled over. So none of that, I believe, would have happened under Coach Saban's leadership. They would have been better prepared. They would have been locked in. They would have been more focused. They wouldn't have overlooked Vanderbilt. They wouldn't have came in with the same mental mindset or attitude that they showed during that game. They would have been prepared, and therefore they wouldn't have been so frustrated about the result that they were receiving during the game. And that type of attitude would never happen, in my opinion. That loss was not just a physical loss. It was a mental loss. It was about not being mentally prepared, and that translated into losing the game on the scoreboard. Here's a few other things I want to get your attention with about that Alabama team. They just did not perform up to the standard that is Alabama football. They were 123rd in the country in penalty yards last year. That's 123 out of only 136 teams at that division of football. That is really bad. They racked up almost 900 penalty yards. I think it was 898 yards in penalty yards on the season. That's an average of just about 70 penalty yards per game. And contrast that to like the 2020 national championship team. They were under 50 yards, I think around 48 yards per game in penalty yards in the 2020 season, compared to last year being 123rd out of 134 teams in penalty yards. You lose games when you give up that type of field position in penalties, but it's not just the penalty yards. It's the timing of these penalties that matter the most, and they had some bad timing on some of these penalties. But Bama had plenty of untimely penalties, which points again to a lack of focus and discipline on the team. This sits really directly on the coaching staff. This is a reflection of the expectations and the accountability established with the team at practice in that football building. The other thing I want to point out to you, they were 97th in the country in turnovers committed. That's horrible. 97 out of 136 teams in college football was their ranking in turnovers, meaning there was only 39 more teams in the whole league of college football at that level that had more turnovers than Alabama did. And giving the ball away does not win championships. You cannot win championships turning the ball over. It just is a proven fact. I want you to get this stat when it comes to turnovers. When a team has just one more turnover than their opponent in a game, they only win 27% of the time. You only have a 27% chance of winning the game if you turn the ball over more than your opponent during the course of a game. That's one of the biggest problems I noticed last year was penalties, turnovers, and then this one, effort. They just did not have the type of effort that we were accustomed to seeing as a fan of the Alabama football team. They did not give the level of effort that you saw them give under Coach Nick Saban. They have the talent, speed, and size. That's not a problem in Alabama, but I saw players not giving effort. I saw players getting lazy. I saw players getting pushed around. I mean, literally, an Alabama player who's bigger, stronger, more talented, getting pushed around far too many times during games last year. And very seldom did you ever see that over the past 17 years. Alabama, over the past 17 years, when Saban was there, they just did not get out physical. They didn't get physically pushed around. And they, for sure, didn't give a lack of effort. They always gave effort on every play, no matter what the scoreboard was. How many times do you see Coach Saban, maybe in the fourth quarter, they're up by 30, 40, sometimes even 50 points on an opponent. There's 2 minutes left in the game, and you see Coach Saban having a meltdown on the sideline because someone commits a penalty, or someone misses a tackle, or they miss an assignment. Coach Saban would freak out on the sidelines. You know what I'm talking about if you've watched them play over the last 17 years. You did not see that last year from a Kalen DeBoer team. You saw penalties, you saw more turnovers, you saw lack of effort, you saw conduct problems. Again, this is all a reflection of being locked in mentally and having your focus where it needs to be. It's not a talent thing, it's a mental thing. And you've got to set your leadership as a coaching staff. You've got to set a certain level of expectation at practice and in that football building to correct those things. They must be fixed if Alabama's going to get back on top. Now, I've been told that those things are being corrected. They've been addressed down there in Tuscaloosa. I've been told that the vibe, the attitude, and the accountability in that building down in T-Town is a lot different this year than it was last year, and that's a good thing. So I'm optimistic about where Coach DeBoer and his staff is going to take the Crimson Tide in 2025. But as I stated at the beginning, he's a proven coach. He's got to get it right. But here's one thing. He didn't have his main partner in Coach Ryan Grubb last year. We know Ryan came there for a few weeks and then left and went to the NFL, but he's chosen to come back. And Batman and Robin's back together. Coach DeBoer's main partner on his staff, Ryan Grubb, is back with him. And trust me, having your guys, the right guys on your staff, makes a major difference in the entire program. Not just with the offensive brilliance of Coach Grubb and what he and DeBoer has been able to do historically together, but just that attitude and that comfort level permeates throughout the entire building down there and the entire team. So getting Grubb and DeBoer back together, I believe will have a very positive impact on the team and their performance, execution, and success this year. Now, according to the odd makers, Alabama has the 6th best odds to win it all. They have the 3rd best odds to win the SEC behind Texas and Georgia in 2025. Now, we know that the quarterback position, we had to figure it out. They've selected Ty Simpson to be QB1 down there, and I believe that's a good decision. If you follow recruiting, you'll remember that Ty Simpson was a 5-star recruit. So the question is, how much has he developed in the 3 years of being at Alabama? Can he take that 5-star recruiting status and the maturity and the experience of being in the program for 3 years and lead Alabama back to the promised land? Their success will come down to offensive consistency this year. The swings in the offensive consistency last year were huge. The offensive team that we saw on the field at LSU versus the offensive team we saw on the field at Oklahoma could not have been further apart. Major difference. Even in the Georgia game, the first half offense that we saw in the Georgia game, and then the second half. Of course, they turned it on at the very end to pull that game back out when Georgia visited Tuscaloosa last year. But the inconsistency in the offensive performance last year with Jalen Milroe was huge, and I expect Ty Simpson will not give you these huge swings in performance like we got from Jalen Milroe last year. And as a coach and as an offensive coordinator, which I am, it's hard to put together a game plan and call plays when you literally have no idea which Jalen Milroe you were going to get on game day last year. This is where Ty Simpson will bring consistency back to the program. You can game plan and call plays around consistency. Coach DeBoer actually alluded to this recently, I think at the SEC Media Days or in an interview just after that, where he mentioned something like the mere presence of consistency, what that does to your team, what it benefits your team with, what it does to your run game, what it does to your play action game, what it does to how even your defenses, that have to defend you, what they have to do and what type of game planning they have to do when they see offensive consistency in areas. So this is a major point to their success this year, is being consistent on the offensive side of the ball. And it's true that Ty Simpson is not going to give you some of those freak athletic plays that we saw Jalen Milroe do at times last year, but over the course of the season, consistency is going to prove to be a good thing for the Alabama Crimson Tide. The point I'm trying to make here, I can relate it to a couple great quarterbacks in the NFL. You take someone like Lamar Jackson for the Ravens. He can give you a freaky athletic play, but they have yet to win a championship, right? Yet you see the consistency of quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes and even the GOAT, Tom Brady, in the championships that they have produced because of the consistency and lack of consistency. When you have that big play ability and you're not consistent on a game in and game out basis, it's much harder to get to the championship level. And it's hard to coach around those things. It's tough going into a game thinking, are we going to get the LSU version of the offense last year, or are we going to get the Oklahoma version of the offense on Saturday? When a coach has to deal with that, it's very tough to game plan and call plays. Another thing that I want to point out about what I saw with Alabama last year that needs improvement if they're going to have a successful campaign in 2025 is the pass rush and tackling on the defensive side of the ball. The pass rush last year slipped from what we're used to seeing from an Alabama team. They were 69th in sacks last year, when traditionally they've always been top 20, if not top 15 team in sacks in the country. Last year they were 69th. And the tackling definitely slipped as well. Go back and look at last year's tape and notice just how many missed tackles that we saw from this defense, and also the lack of what I call physical tackles was missing with the Tide last year. But with the dudes they have coming back, I think this is going to be fixed. You got Dante Lawson and Quan Rushaw and Latham and Overton all at the linebacker and defensive end positions, and Tim Keenan, top 2 recruits that we have yet to see on the field make a real impact, but you should keep an eye on them, is Pierre and Keeley. Those 2 guys are top recruits. They've yet to get on the field enough to make an impact, but I think this year we're going to start to see them rise to the top with all those other experienced players that I just mentioned to you. So you should see a well-improved defense with better fundamentals and higher levels of effort this year. It's going to get the job done, especially on the back end. The secondary last year really had a lot of inexperience in it. They lost a lot with Caleb Downs going to Ohio State and the graduates of people like Kool-Aid McKinstry and the secondary players that they lost. They were really inexperienced and had a lot of youth in the DB room last year, but they played pretty well. And this year they've got more experience, and I believe this is a really solid group. Matter of fact, the DB group may be the strength of the team due to the depth that they have at that position. The second string guys in the defensive backfield would most likely start at most other places around the SEC. So I really think you're going to get a much improved defense. I think you're going to get more pressure on the quarterback. You're going to have more fundamental tackling. You're going to have more physical tackling, and you're going to definitely have an improvement on the back end. So the defense, I think, is set to really look like an Alabama defense that we're used to. So let's go back to the offensive side of the ball with Ty Simpson. This guy has some studs at wide receiver around him, that is for sure. Maybe, just maybe, some people think it might be the best overall wide receiver group in the country, especially in the SEC. You got Isaiah Horton, which is a transfer from Miami, who had 616 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. He is a difference maker. He can really body people up. He's a physical presence. He's 6'4", 210 pounds, just that big body physical presence at the wide receiver position. That is a really big benefit for the offense, especially in short yardage and down around the goal line. Then there's my main man, Ryan Williams, who burst on the scene last year and had an unbelievable start as a 17-year-old young man. We know about his body control, his ability to get open and make people miss in the open field is really something special. He's a special athlete. Jeremy Bernard is back. And then there's number 17, Brooks, who I understand is a true freshman, but I want you to keep an eye on this guy, number 17, Brooks. If you watch him, he has all the talent and the tools you want in a wide receiver. But this kid is going to have the potential to be something really special. So the wide receiver group as a whole is really strong. We've got big-bodied guys. We've got special talented guys. We've got fast, quick guys. We've got possession guys. So Ty Simpson's got a lot of weapons at the wide receiver position. So we also know the offensive line is going to be a strength of the team. We got to get that running game back in order, and I believe we'll do that with Jam Miller. And one small point or a few points about their schedule this year. There is no back-to-back road games this year. That's a unique point. I want you to make note of that. They don't have back-to-back road games. They get their 2 weeks off, their 2 byes come right before their biggest games of the season. They get a bye before the Georgia game, and they get a bye before the LSU game. But so does Georgia and LSU. They both have byes before they play Alabama. So really no advantage there besides all teams, Alabama, LSU, and Georgia, all are going to get basically 2 weeks to prepare for each other. The trap game on the schedule could be the Missouri game. So this is something that I think the coaching staff's got to point to. You know, it's a big time game in Columbia, Missouri down there, and you got to be careful because right after we go to Athens and play Georgia, then we get Vanderbilt back at home before the Missouri game. But that Vanderbilt game, because of what happened last year, the team's got to go get out of the Georgia game. They got to get locked in and focused, make sure they take care of business at home against Vanderbilt, and then they can't lose their focus and have a letdown and go into Columbia, Missouri and play those Tigers and get, beat up down there because Tennessee is on the other side of that game. So you've got the Georgia, Vanderbilt, then Missouri, then Tennessee game all jammed in there, and you've got to stay focused because the schedule is not going to get any easier. Right after that Tennessee game, the third Saturday in October, they head to Columbia, South Carolina to play the Gamecocks, and that is always a lit stadium and a tough place to play. And then right after going into Columbia, to play the Gamecocks in South Carolina. They've got LSU waiting on them when they get back home, followed by Oklahoma, which embarrassed them last year. And then they are off to the Iron Bowl in Auburn this year. So the schedule is not an easy one. It's the 9th hardest schedule in the nation, according to the odds makers. The bottom line is this: Alabama is returning a lot of experienced players who decided to stay around and stick around, a lot like Ohio State had last year. They are a talented group, and they're certainly talented enough. If they have their mind in the right place, they got the right mindset, the right focus, the right attitude, and they stay locked in and stay focused and give the effort required to be a championship team, they have a legitimate shot at winning the SEC. But they'll have to get through Georgia and Texas, which is no easy task, to see that become a reality. And we all know that if you can get through the SEC and get crowned the SEC champion, you have a high probability going on to win the national championship. But Ohio State, Penn State, and even Clemson this year might have something to say about all of that before it's over with. Those are 3 teams I think have the talent to compete at any level and make a run towards winning the national championship team with the SEC winner. So I can't wait for the season to get going. I can't wait for kickoff. It's just around the corner. So let's get locked in and let's get ready, let's get focused, and let's get after it. I can't wait. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for us. Leave a comment. I know everything I've just shared with you is sparking some thought and sparking some comments. Leave comments in the comment section. We want to hear from you, good or bad, and share the podcast with someone and help us grow our audience. We have a saying around here: let's make plays and not excuses. Until next time, God bless.